Dear friends, this is a VPC video devotional. I'm Reverend Dr. Dave Joint, and we are studying, you can see in our written version of this devotional, the theme of what is everlasting, what remains in a world of change. And this week we're looking at everlasting generosity. And so I'm going to read to you two passages that are quite similar. See if you can notice the differences. The first of those is Matthew 6:19 through 21, and then Luke, in his gospel, chapter 12, 32 through 34, has a version of the same saying of Jesus. So let's listen now first to Matthew for the word of the Lord. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves can break in and steal. I just want to point out, it's interesting, in one sentence, Jesus manages to cover the threat that nature poses to our possessions. That's the moth and rust, kind of natural processes like rust, chemical process of disintegration, and animal impacts on things, the moth, but that's the natural world. And then also the historical world as well. That's thieves who can break in and steal. We can imagine all kinds of different historical realities that can attack our possessions, the things we've accumulated. There are wars that take away sections of a country where everyone loses their possessions. There are economic things, the volatility of the market and inflation and currency devaluation and identity theft. And I won't scare you by going on further, but there's an instability to treasures on earth. And then he goes on to say, instead, verse 20, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust can consume, and where thieves do not break in to steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. So I want to just read from Luke as well. So there's a lot of scripture to read at the beginning, but here's these three verses from Luke 12. Don't be afraid, little flock. It is your Father's good pleasure, greatest joy, most exciting thing, to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purses for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. This is the word of the Lord. Well, Jesus is a realist about the dangers of material possession. And the danger is that if we devote ourselves exclusively in a kind of a narrow way to personal accumulation, if we're focusing on individual success and status and comfort and security, then we will miss out on a life that is devoted to blessing others and building God's kingdom. And worse, the most disappointing, is that earthly treasures are fragile and temporary. Everything that we've ever owned that survives through our lifetimes, the ravages and disintegration of time, will pass on to someone else and they'll own it. We're temporary custodians, not real owners of the things in our lives. And power and status fade, comfort and security give way to age, decline, and death. Symbols of success are, as I've been saying, impermanent and passed on to others. And so one of the things that's most interesting to me about this is that there's kind of a gear effect with this. There's a impact that the instability of possessions and their vulnerability can have on us. Instead of encouraging us to experience the glorious freedom of the children of God, where we see ourselves as stewards of his gifts and we begin to share those and build the kingdom, we can double down on accumulation to try to create security. And we can, in effect, go to war with the forces of disintegration that are natural and historical. And that is just a losing proposition in the end. And what's more, it takes up so much of our time and energy that we're not able to devote that to things that are more worthwhile and more powerful. I want to be clear that that success at material accumulation is not in and of itself a bad thing. It is a powerful thing. When you use your creative capacities and your energies and your giftings and your capacity for risk, and you invest yourself in things, and you create value through that, that is a powerful, good thing. And in fact, the resources that result from that can drive kingdom purposes. That's the thing to remember. The blessing of material success is that it can be invested in powerful ways in the kingdom. And God is pleased to give us that kingdom. He's pleased to return our investments in what he's doing in the world in ways that are really transcendent experiences of joy and love. So we're called to make strategic investments. There's a place for kingdom entrepreneurs. Best of all, in doing this, we become like him. We get to resemble the one who's the giver of every good and perfect gift.